I'm back. It's me. So, short update. I haven't been busy here because I was actually in between moving. And as the title says, this video is going to be about Deltarune and Undertale. Full warning, spoilers ahead. If you haven't played these games, both Deltarune and Undertale can be found on Steam as well as some respective consoles. Undertale is completed as far as I'm aware, and Deltarune is not finished, but the first 2 chapters were released for free. So, where do I start on a video like this? Frankly, I'm just going to jump right in. This video is obviously intended for the people who have played all 3, 1 Undertale plus 2 Deltarune chapters, of the main titles so far. What I really want to touch on is the main mystery of this universe. That is, the man who goes by many names, the guy who's totally not Uboa from Yuminiki, the mystery man, the royal scientist, the WD doctor himself, Dr. Gaster. Quick recap. Dr. Gaster was a royal scientist, creator of many inventions to be used by monsters. This includes the core, the big red thing in the distance of the hot zone. Now you've probably never heard the name Gaster in game, because by the time you as the player are introduced, he's long gone. So what happened to our boy? Well, he's a clumsy fellow and whoopsie, he took a tumble straight into his own creation. This accidentally split him across time and space and basically just erased him entirely. So how do we even know about him then? Well, let me tell you. In Undertale, there are very specific circumstances in which you can meet characters called goners. They tell us what I just explained to you. Goners are, well, we don't really know. Reality ghosts? Kinda. I mean, they're real people that are stuck in between reality. So, I think that's as close as you get to that. Anyway, that's Gaster, the creepy guy in the grey room who shattered across time and space. There's more to that story if you dig deeper, but for the sake of time, I'm just gonna move on. Now with the recap over, we can get to the fun part. I'm gonna go crackhead in here. That's right, I'm going full crackhead in this bitch. Full crackhead, no stop, never stopping, forever. So, Deltarune is heavily implied to be linked to Gaster in a lot of ways, and we're gonna talk about that. My main theory, which I'm pretty solid on, is that Chris, the character you play as, is inadvertently resurrecting Gaster. Stay with me here. But I can hear you saying, wait, Gaster doesn't exist anymore, he was shattered across realities, he can't be anywhere anymore. I know, just wait and hear me out. Now you see, there's a separate motive to Deltarune that I believe is the real operation at hand. We are told from the very beginning there are 3 heroes. The 2 Lighteners, a monster and a human, and the Prince from the Dark. And that these guys have to see all these fountains before the 3rd impact or whatever. But on our mission, we quickly find out that there is more happening behind the scenes. Introduce Jevil the Jester. Jevil was a jester. You know, like a jokester or a joker or a card. The whole thing was about tabletops. Anyway, the jester was cast out of his court after going mad after encountering a quote-unquote certain someone. His personality had permanently changed. He started saying things that didn't make any sense, but didn't not make sense. Or so the shopkeeper says. He continues. At some point, Jevil began viewing the world as a game, and everyone else as participants. After that, he was locked away. But whom exactly locked Jevil away in this magic cell? The shopkeeper explains that the court magician was the one who did it. But who's that? And as we find out, we're already talking to them. The shopkeeper was the court magician the entire time. When you first meet Jevil, he explains some of his story, leaving out very important details, and you learn the rest from the shopkeeper. Oddly enough, the first time you talk to Jevil, he insists on the fact that Jevil is not in prison. Everyone else is in prison. Jevil wishes to be free. Jevil wishes to free more people. I'll show you. Let's play a game, and then I'll show you how to be free. So, after finding some keys, you fix them up and then open the cell. Here, you play a game with Jevil called Don't Get Murdered by a Clown. And after a perilous fight with the Joker, you defeat him in one way or another, either by killing him or tiring him out. Either way you do it, it really doesn't matter. But what is of most importance is the 2 items you obtain after this fight. If you kill Jevil, you get a weapon. If you don't kill Jevil, you get a piece of armor. But what actually matters is this item called a Shadow Crystal. Now here's where things get very, very interesting. So interestingly enough, you can't actually even see the shadow crystal until talking to Seam again. It doesn't even appear in your inventory. You'd never even know if you had it. He's the first one to find it. He claims that he sees its shadow being cast. The crystal itself is actually invisible. Only a casting shadow is the way to perceive its presence. But what's so important about this crystal, you might be asking? Let me tell you. This little shard right here may be the seam that brings it all together. Okay, hear me out. I am fairly confident that in one way or another, I truly believe the shadow crystals are in fact W.D. Gaster himself. I mean, it's the only logical solution. Think about it. A man shattered across time and space, fragmented into pieces, struggling to maintain his corporeal form, crystals you can't physically see, but only cast a shadow, a man you cannot interact with yourself, but the shadow of his presence still looms. You can peer through the shadows. You can look for W.D. Gaster, and your findings will lead you further, but you will never find the source. I mean, if anything, it's an allegory. And Seam, now being known as the Magician, the only one who can see the crystals and now has the desire to collect them all? Now, we've never seen him use this magic that he speaks of, but what if I were to say maybe his specialty isn't magic as we know it, but, in a sense, alchemy? Turning one metal, or in this case, a crystal, into another form, such as a man. All I'm saying is, if his magic's powerful enough to keep Jevil in a cage, what's stopping him from putting together Gaster? In other words, what I believe is happening in Deltarune is Seam is taking Chris's shadow crystals in hopes to put together Gaster. This is supported by what we talked about previously, that Gaster was shattered, quote, shattered across time and space. The only logical solution to the shadow crystals is that they are Gaster. They follow the same properties as Gaster, and it's in the name Shadow Crystal. Shard, shattered. Gaster was shattered into a crystal, a shadow crystal. And to even further support this, if you were to check the shadow crystal in Chapter 1, it would say, you see the computer lab. Interestingly enough, that just happens to be the next setting for Chapter 2, almost like it's leading you to more shadow crystals. Like it wants you to collect them. So with everything I just talked about, I am firmly led to believe with this info that the crystals are leading Chris not only to a new world, but to the location of a next crystal. It's not warning you, it's guiding you, it's manipulating you towards its goal, and I also kind of think it's Gaster. While we're at it, let's talk about Chapter 2, where we experience the same thing as we did with Chapter 1 with Jevil. I'm not going to go into every minute detail of Chapter 2, but I'm going to go into the details of this new character. Along our journey of Cyberworld, or the computer lab, we take a shortcut through an alley and meet a strange fellow. Here we encounter dumpster diver Andy, who goes by the name of Spamton, or his offered name, Spamton G. Spamton. What the G stands for is as good as your guess as it is mine, even though it's probably Gaster. He tells his life story about how he was a #1 salesman in 1997, or so he believes, and his frustration at the world for being a wash-up celebrity who now literally lives in a garbage can. Spamton, at first glance, might just seem like a strange character, but the longer you speak to him, the more concerning it becomes. He also speaks in pop-up ads, whether to censor himself, to cut out crucial information, or just to fuck with you, because he's an asshole. It's not consistent enough to make a pattern out of it. He's your typical 90s salesman, talking about big deals and being a big shot. His line of hyperlink blocked is used a ton to censor important information. One could probably say that it might be assumed that Chris can hear him, but the player cannot. I don't know, mini theory, I don't have any evidence for it, but I said it. Right off the bat, Spamton takes no time wasted to attack you. In his battle, he rambles about some deal he wants to make with you, but there's interesting information within his nonsense. Like, for example, Spamton uses a different type of currency, one not seen from our world. Not dark dollars, or just dollars, instead Chromer, whatever that is. Example number 2, Spamton, like Jevil, says he wasn't a salesman for the money, but actually for the freedom. The freedom to call his own shots, like the Jester. Throughout his fight, Spamton constantly adds the words help to the end of his dialogue, like he's not fully in control of himself. I will mention this later when I work this back around to Gaster because it's quite important. As we reach the end of the fight, Spamton offers one more deal that you just can't refuse. Literally. You make the deal and the battle ends. You gain 0 XP and you lose some cash. But here's where things get important. Supposedly, you ended up buying some sort of membership to his own self-run shop that's located in a literal landfill where he sells actual trash. All of the wares Spamton sells are broken down, beaten, or just old. Somehow, which shouldn't be possible considering the cyber world was just created, and none of which are cyber themed. The most important thing that Spamton sells is the keygen, which in my script, quote, blah blah story things. So as we talk to Spamton, he'll first tell you about the keygen and what to do with it. Basically just go somewhere and unlock something and then come back. Spamton says concerning lines insinuating that he's in constant pain. Like, I used to be the email guy, but now I'm the it burns, ow, stop, help me, it burns guy. Another line that sticks out, which we'll wrap around to later, is, you too can have communion with an unintelligible laughter. Not only that, but weirdly enough, Spamton directly references Jevil in the next line. I'll soon even surpass that damn clown around town, signifying that somehow they know each other, which if you've been paying attention, should be impossible considering they exist in different universes. This also works backwards because Jevil actually did mention that he knew the queen, and the king and queen know each other, I guess, so I guess Spamton could have known him too. Doesn't really make sense, but you know, whatever. Strangely enough though, Spamton doesn't stop there, and he continues to say he's gonna shoot for the sky on the path to an interesting line, and we'll get back to it. The next line is also important, but can go 2 ways. In between 2 lines of dialogue, Spamton stops to address the player, not Chris, you, stating, can anyone hear me? Help. Spamton then snaps out of his trance and says, what? No! I didn't hear anything just now. But it sounded like they were talking to you, as in the player, signifying that he is not in full control. Or, alternatively, and more likely, it's Gaster. Gaster is calling out to the player that he needs help to accomplish coming back. While talking to Spamton, there's one other strange line when you ask him about friends. He talks about not needing friends and then gets stuck on some guy named Mike. We don't know a Mike though, so I guess look out for a Mike. Now, admittedly this could be a bit of a stretch, but isn't every theory? As I'm watching back the dialogue of Spamton, whenever he seems to snap into that strange trance state where he tries to address the player, his eyes show a vision of somewhere seemingly an empty void made of static, and it's raining. So I'm going to make a gigantic leap and call out that it might be a reference to the song It's Raining Somewhere Else, used in Undertale. It's a place we can't really tell where it is, it's somewhere, and it's raining, so put it together, it's raining somewhere else. If anything, I think it's just a reference to the song and not anything beyond that contextually, but I thought it was interesting enough to point out. I'm gonna shoot for the sky on the path to... This is a very important line, as it solidified my main theory. You fall into the dark world, right? I mean, it's a transition, so what this tells me is Gaster is attempting to be resurrected. Resurrection using either shards or the people he's possessing in the dark world, and then jump from there into the real world. Either way, he still wins. To continue with this theory and back to the story, Spamton has you essentially upload him into the Metaton Neo body, so that he can kill you and make his way to the real world, his quote-unquote heaven. After inserting this disc into the Neo body, he goes on a full-on power trip, talking about freedom and how big he is now. Not only a trip of power, but seemingly relief. He states that, I don't have to be a puppet anymore. Interesting, right? He also mentions that he's attached to strings, Again, another pointer towards Spamton not being the person in control. "It's dark! So dark!" Spamton cries. A reference to entry 17, darker yet darker. He goes on a tirade about needing to kill Chris and gain their soul so that he could possibly be tall enough to see past this overwhelming darkness. To be tall enough, no, high enough, to climb to the heights of heaven itself. Yet again, I believe that this is another allegory to what it actually means. Try and escort Gaster to the surface. Above the dark, above the clouds, into heaven! I.e., the real world outside of the dark world, where you fell going up. Then we fight him, and it's actual gameplay, and we're not here to talk about that. Throughout this battle, Spamton talks a lot about this heaven idea he has. He talks about it like it's an entity and not a concept. Lines of dialogue like, "Heaven, are you watching?" And, "Chris, isn't this body just heavenly?" Heaven put in brackets. I believe Spamton is referring to the Neo body being connected to the real world, being from Undertale as we've seen. And heaven, to Spamton, is just that, the real world. Another great line referencing back to Gaster, which I haven't mentioned just yet, but is referenced previously, is, "Chris, you just have to die," is what he's saying in this context. "Then we'll be the ones making the calls." Now, obviously, in this context, Chris can't be the person he's talking to when he refers to "we'll," because Chris would be dead in this context, meaning he has to be referring to somebody else. Now, whether you think that's Mike, this unspoken character, or Gaster, I would think it's closer to Gaster. An incredibly telling line that supports my theory as evidence that someone else is in control of Spamton is the line, "Chris, what are my eggs going to do?" A very blatant and obvious reference to the mystery eggs that Chris obtains during chapters 1 and 2. The eggs are another very important part of Deltarune. I haven't mentioned them yet, but they will probably be mentioned later, depending on if I even wrote it in the fucking script. If you do wish to know more and I didn't talk about it, please just refer to the Deltarune wiki discussing, quote-unquote, egg. And probably the most in-your-face blatant piece of evidence that Gaster is in control is the ending of the Spamton fight. After snapping all the wires holding him up, Spamton believes that this will set him free from the dark world and bring him straight into the real world. Straight to heaven. But, unfortunately for him, after cutting the last string, he is immediately cut off to whoever's controlling him, be it Gaster or somebody else, so he loses all senses and contact to the world and is surrounded by blank nothingness. In other words, Spamton is instantly killed. Although, he's not really dead. In the next scene, he's free from, let's say, Gaster's manipulation. He was no longer of this world. Due to Gaster's possession, I'll say. Spamton too existed outside of this world. Spamton, strung up by vines, accepts he was nothing more than a puppet. And just like that, and just like Gaster, he fades away from this world as soon as you press E on him. And just like Jevil, he turns into a piece of armor or a weapon depending on what you did, and a crystal to go along with it. But this time, you're aware of it. If you go to the shopkeeper in the Queen's Mansion, you can learn more about Spamton. Like we already knew, he was a spam email puppet account, but in fact, he was not successful. In fact, he was very unsuccessful. Out of desperation, he began making any deals he could, which would lead to his ultimate demise. One day, Spamton took a phone call, and with the help of a stranger, became very, very successful. With this great success, he gained the Queen's attention. He even got his own room. Supposedly, this stranger that helped was most likely this Mike that we hear of. But then suddenly Mike disappeared. And with Mike, all Spamton's success went with him. Evicted from the mansion, his previous buddies went to go kick him out, but he wasn't even in the room. But what was in the room was a phone off its receiver, and what was heard was nothing but garbage noises. These same noises can be heard by Chris if he picks up the phone in the dark world, and since this sound directly originated from its relation to Gaster, there you go. So the running theory is that Spamton, just like Jevil, came in contact with Gaster over the phone and then went crazy. Upon giving the crystal back to Seam, they will mention the next enemy will be completely unbeatable without an item known as the Shadow Mantle, but he lost it. Get it? Because, you know, it doesn't have a physical form. So anyway, with this, I conclude my summary. My theory is Gaster is in control, he is trying to resurrect himself, and he is trying to go from the Dark World to the surface through either shards or possession. Cool, that one's done. I could go on and on about the relations to Gaster and how Deltarune is definitely an underlying story around him, and to be honest, I probably will. I don't know how long this video is going to be. This next part of the video is kind of like some rapid timing mini theories. It's supposed to give some evidence or some context to things I kind of have an idea on, but I'm not foolproof on the evidence. Take it as you will. I wouldn't take them 100% seriously. I think the Gaster one's pretty foolproof, but I mean, you never know, honestly. These ones, not so much. These ones I'm not so sure about. But I'm really just taking what I've seen and applying some evidence from other things just to like try and connect some dots. So take that as you will. Just be open-minded with it, I guess. So as previously stated, I'm going to try to go through these a little faster. I'm just presenting these as evidence. There's no real in-depth explanations to them. I'll just add a little bit of context to each one. So actually, funny enough, this was the reason I wanted to make this video, but then I realized my other actual theory was like way better than this theory was in sense of evidence. So this was the theory I originally started with. Sans is probably a Darkener, or at least was from Deltarune before he entered Undertale. Now, there's a lot of evidence for this theory, but it's not nearly as like foolproof and solid as the Gaster one is. The Gaster one has a lot of evidence that you can just go on for hours looking through the game and finding things. So basically, to start off this theory that Sans is from Deltarune or he's a Darkener, is Sans is pretty omnipotent. Everyone kind of knows that if you've done the genocide route. He knows a ton of things that he should not know. He knows about other timelines, he knows about science and quantum theory, he knows what the sun is despite the fact he's never even seen it. He knows the mechanics of the game despite the fact he is in the game and shouldn't know. A lot of these can be explained away if you ponder the idea that he's from Deltarune. If Sans is from Deltarune and not from the Underground and Undertale, it would mean he would know what the sun was, he would be able to study quantum physics because he would have stuff from the outside world, and he would know about timelines from the Darkeners and whatever else happens in Deltarune. And a very important note that a lot of people don't talk about, he probably knows Susie, Chris, and Roselli. Razal Ghul? I don't know. Moving on. So in Undertale, there's an Easter egg called Clam Girl with a fun value set to 80 through 89. In the waterfall area, right after the dummy, she will say, "My neighbor's daughter looks about your age. Her name is Susie." Not knowing where I live is no issue. Fate finds a way. In life's grand scheme of things, she might be why you came here in the first place. Now, there's a lot to unpack on that. A lot. But what really matters is what happens after that. If you do the whole thing where you get Sam's key to the back of his house, you can go to Sans' secret room. And in that room, there's a photo in the drawer. Now, normally it says, there's a photo of some people you don't know. But now, after talking about Susie with Clam Girl, it says, there is a photo album inside the drawer. There's photos of, huh? A card is sticking out the back of the flap. It's a poorly drawn picture of 3 people smiling together. And it says, don't forget. And if you don't already know, the song that plays at the end of Deltarune Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 is literally called Don't Forget. So, the 3 people in the photo, who are they? Well, many said for a very long time, oh, it's gotta be Sans, Gaster, and Papyrus. But it's not, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you exactly why it's not those 3. It can't be Sans, it can't be Papyrus, and it probably can't be Gaster either, and I'll explain why. It can't be Sans and Papyrus because he knows them. It can't be Gaster because if you get that fun value, he won't be there. But it also can't be anybody in the Underground. Canonically, Frisk knows everyone in the Underground. So it has to be somebody else that he doesn't know, which means it can only be someone from outside, in the random world of Undertale outside on Earth, or it has to be somebody from Deltarune. And again, with this tricky wordplay on unlockable areas, it can only be Roselli, Susie, and Chris because it only unlocks that dialogue after the clam lady mentions Susie. And some might be saying, okay, but that doesn't prove that Sans is a Darkner and or he's from Deltarune. That's just one piece of evidence. I could make assumptions all day based off that one piece, but I have more. And I'm going to rapid fire it because I'm running out of time. Number 1, Sans' room's door matches not only the door of the Dark World doors, but a Dark World shortcut door, which will be important. Number 2, when entering Sans' room, it's pitch black just like when you enter the Dark World. Number 3, spoken by the shopkeep bunny of Snowden, Sans kinda just showed up one day, with Papyrus, not by himself. Number 4, very important, Sans bleeding quote-unquote ketchup is possible if he's a Darkner or from Deltarune, but not possible if he's a monster from Undertale, because the Undertale monsters and the Deltarune monsters have different properties. Undertale monsters don't eat food physically, it's made from magic and they absorb it. Deltarune monsters actually need sustenance from real food to survive. Number 5, the most blatant one so far, Ice E's existence in Undertale despite the fact that they very obviously originate from Deltarune. There is no other Ice E media inside of Undertale except for the 2 things we see from Sans, and they are an inflatable and a word search puzzle, both brought from Sans. Number 6, the word Gaia or whatever comes from a Deltarune blue checkmark puzzle in the Cyberworld in Chapter 2. But what actually matters is it's also found on a word search that Sans brings back from Deltarune, meaning it's probably a word, an actual word in Deltarune, but it's not a word in Undertale, meaning he definitely got that from the Icy restaurant in Deltarune and brought it back. Number 7, unlike every other enemy in Undertale, Sans doesn't have a health bar. Darkeners also don't have health bars, and it's not like health bars don't return because they return for Asgore later in the next room. Number 8, Sans seems to have Darkner magic similar to Roselli and Lancer. Not that they are Lancer, just that they have similar abilities that are shown to exhibit. For example, he can walk around the screen and teleport. And lastly, Sans exhibits Darkner magic by turning Grillby's into a grocery store. The last theory I had was way too small to make into an actual video, or into its own little segment here, so I stuck it at the end. This theory concerns Onion, the squid onion guy, and if you talk to him in Chapter 1, he mentions that he has a secret he can only tell you. And if you come back to him in Chapter 2, he mentions the secret. It's that deep below the lake, he hears music. Supposedly, in my theory, it's Gaster's little tune. So you're probably questioning, well, what's under the lake? I think it's the bunker that you see on the other side of town. I mean, it's the only thing that goes underground, so it makes more sense than anything else. It's quite big, and if we're going off the entrance, could probably go on for quite a while. Possibly so far it goes into the lake, maybe even the whole town, who knows? And the reason I think it's his music is because if you wait long enough while sitting near the bunker, it'll play his theme but slowed down to like 666% or something. I mean, it just makes sense that something down there is producing that noise. Maybe we're just hearing the echo at the entrance. Who knows? Oh yeah, and I chose not to bring up the egg thing again because it actually does get quite complex, especially when it comes to theories. I mean, we know it's Gaster who's probably giving them out, but we don't know what they're doing or what they're even used for. Sometimes you can put them in the freezer or a basket or just give them to Temmie, you know, it's kind of all over the place. It's way too open-ended to pinpoint. Anyway, with that finished, this is the end of the video. Or at least, all I can think of for now. If you enjoyed hearing me ramble, please subscribe and leave some of your own theories below. Maybe I'll do something with it, maybe I won't, I don't know. Ooh, actually, I just thought of something. Alright, I lied. I'm actually back. There's a few more things I want to say, just in like, after production, because it's been a while since I've posted, and I do want to talk about the actual production of this video. So, this video, this script, rather, was created however long ago it was when Deltarune 2 came out. I think not even a day after Deltarune 2, I, made the script to make this video. There was nothing out on Deltarune 2 yet. So if you see a lot of no, not if you see. There's a lot of stuff in this video that's wrong. Because either I fucked up or you know, false information, misinformation, whatever. It was believed at the time and now it's not. That's no longer a thing though, because people have thoroughly done their research and found each and everything. To a degree. I mean, I'm sure there's still hidden secrets everywhere that we're not seeing yet that'll be discovered in like 10 years. But for now, people have discovered the most part. I didn't have the luxury of that though when I made the script. I was just going based off my own shit, my own gameplay. This was not my own gameplay in this one. It actually is my own gameplay. It wasn't my original gameplay, is what I'm trying to say. My original gameplay is long gone. I don't know if you can see. I think you can see my file on there at least once, but that's no longer there though. Let's see. I have a list here that I'm looking through just that I want to talk about before I actually end it. I wrote that. Yep. And then I could have spent a little more time on it on the video or on the script. It would have been really like depressing to me if I were to change the script. I tried to stay as faithful as possible to what I had written down around I think it was 2 years ago now, whenever that chapter came out. Maybe it was only a year ago. But when I wrote that script, I was very, very, very proud of it. And I made sure that I kept it and saved it across a couple of different places. I had some moving troubles, and I thought that I had lost a lot of this stuff, including the Death Stranding retrospective, but that's still there too. I happened to find it. But what happened was I thought this video was never going to come out because I had never recorded it. I didn't do any voice lines. I just wrote the script and it just stayed on my computer for months. And then eventually I got to a point where it was like, I have to make this video or it's never going to come out. I don't care if it's not very good. I don't care if like the data isn't relevant anymore. It's just, I have to make it because I'm not going to be able to live with myself if I don't make this. Like, I'm going to feel really bad if I, a year ago, was so excited about making this video and like people seeing this stuff when Deltarune just came out and I never made it. And it's like that stuff never got out to the public. So I ended up making it. This video was very hard to make. I will say it took around, I mean, for me, this is weird. The longest I've ever worked on a video is the Death Stranding retrospective. That took around 6 months and counting, and then I stopped working on it for a really long time and still aren't. I don't know when that's going to be back in production. It's a huge project. But this video took around 4 days nonstop. Usually I'm an on and off. I go to work on a video for like 1 full day and then I'll take like a month off and then get back to it on a full day and really like work out what I want to do with it. And I mean, that could be my detriment, to be honest. My downfall is that a lot of videos don't get produced because I'm too busy editing them and then I don't actually edit them for a long time and then they never come out. But this video in particular, I really wanted to finish because not only did it interest me, but I remember, like I said before, just it gave me such joy to create that script. I really liked that script that I wrote. But the problem of that was that the script wasn't accurate to its data a lot of the time. And I know that's going to be a problem for some people. And honestly, it's a problem for me too. I mean, I would really much like if the script was 100% data accurate, but I honestly feel like if I were to rewrite the script entirely to make sure all the data is correct and to make sure like everything is accurate, it wouldn't be the same script. It would not be what I wrote down, and I just feel like I've rewrite it. And it's like, if I rewrote it, then it's not even what I wrote down originally. It's not even what I was so excited about. So what I did to remedy that was I added these kind of like footnotes. Let's see if I can find one real quick. I added these footnotes in between like certain sections here to try and see if I can, yeah, to try and see if I can like remedy that I like fucked up shit or I did something wrong. Um, if you're listening to this audio, like just audio only, I really suggest going back and watching it like visually so you can get that aspect. If you don't, then I'll just let you know that there's a bunch of notes in there that just try to remedy things I have gotten wrong or things I fucked up, or just like the general mistakes I made throughout auditory, whatever. Just vocal stuff I fucked up. Um, I had a lot of trouble with audio actually. I had a lot of trouble with audio. I had to buy a mic cover to make sure that doesn't work. I've noticed I have a real problem with S's doing voice lines and having to voice quote unquote voice Jevil and Spamton was quite tough actually. I thought that I would do much better than I actually did, but it seemed like I kind of faltered near the end there. But you know, I mean, we improve in some ways. We have to practice to improve, so I think it's perfectly fine that even if some people think it's a bit annoying to listen to or a little weird overall, that I get the practice out there and then I can improve over time when I have to do it again. What's the next thing I said? I went over that. I went over that. I went over that. I think the only thing I have to say is when the next chapters come out for Deltarune, I am 100% going to make another video again. I absolutely know that's a fact. As soon as those, I think it's 3 chapters that comes out next. As soon as those 3 chapters come out, I'm definitely going to be like right on that, immediately going through it. And like just going left and right, analyzing everything and trying to get through that. I mean, I had so much fun making this video and like at the time playing this game. I mean, I don't think it has to be said, but Deltarune and Undertale, they are amazing games. Toby Fox is a fantastic game creator and a one of a kind composer, really. He is incredible. But that doesn't have to be said. If you're watching this, you already know. So either way, that's the end of this. I'm not going to add too much more time to this. I don't know if I already said this, but I had this joke in here where it was like, if you think this video is cringe, fuck you. Fuck you. Go watch something else. I don't know. I think I already said it. But, alright, that's enough. So, I will see you guys later. Whatever I produce next, I don't know what's going to happen. So, see ya.